All right, let's dive right in. Forget Silicon Valley for a minute. No Patagonia vests, no venture capital pitches, none of that today. We're going way back to the 7th century to look at a merchant whose business strategies, specifically his secret trading tactics, fundamentally rival and honestly kind of outperform today's top CEOs. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to reverse engineer the absolutely incredible rags to riches success of Abdurahman ibn Auf.
To really grasp why we're studying him, you've got to understand the sheer scale of his success. Adjusted for today's money, his peak net worth is estimated at $1.25 trillion. Yeah, trillion with a T. It's an absolutely mind-boggling figure that easily makes him one of the most astute businessmen in human history. But, what's truly fascinating isn't just that massive number at the end, it's exactly how he got there.
And this quote right here perfectly captures his starting point. So picture this. When Abdurrahman migrated to Medina, he left literally all of his wealth behind in Mecca. Zero assets. He was paired up with a wealthy local who generously offered him half of his property. The guy literally handed him a massive estate on a silver platter. But Abdurrahman? He actually refused the handout. His response was this legendary quote, "May Allah bless you with your family, but show me where the marketplace is." He wanted to build it completely from scratch. So here is our quick roadmap for this explainer. First, the bootstrapped trillionaire. 2, those 3 secret trading tactics we really want to focus on. 3, spotting gaps and managing risk. 4, the power of reinvestment. And 5, the ultimate wealth multiplier.
Okay, part 1, the bootstrap trillionaire.
According to the sources, his initial capital in the market was a grand total of 2 or 4 dinars. That's it. In today's startup lingo, this is the ultimate, absolute bootstrapping scenario. He took basically the change in his pocket and used his incredibly sharp business mind to turn those couple of coins into millions. He started out by trading simple goods as his minimum viable product, or MVP, and slowly worked his way up to high-ticket items, like horses and saddles. Now, contrast those initial 2 to 4 dinars with what he left behind. The source data shows he had hundreds of thousands of gold dinars at the time of his death. To put that into perspective, just his 4 wives inherited 80,000 gold dinars each. That's a total of 320,000 dinars just for them, totally excluding children and other heirs. He left behind so much physical gold that it literally had to be broken apart with axes just to be distributed. I mean, wow. It proves his methods worked on a scale that is almost unfathomable. So, how exactly did he pull this off? This brings us to part 2, and really the core of this explainer, his 3 secret trading tactics. This is the engine of his trillion-dollar empire. His entire story reveals a deeply principled strategy built on 3 foundational pillars: low gearing and high liquidity, high volume with low profit, and absolute high credibility. Let's break these down one by one because honestly, they fundamentally challenge how a lot of businesses operate today. First up, low gearing and high liquidity. What's absolutely fascinating here is his total 100% reliance on cash flow. He never took a loan, he never accepted a financial gift. His strategy was based entirely on what he could liquidate and move right then and there. Underlying all of this was a deep concept of tawakkul, complete trust that divine provision would sustain him. So his business wasn't artificially propped up by debt, it was grounded entirely in real liquid reality. Tactic number 2, high volume over low profit. Rather than hoarding goods to artificially drive up prices or just sitting around waiting for a massive profit margin, he kept his inventory moving. Our sources note he would sell a product even if he was offered just a single penny of profit. Why? Because it generated a high continuous flow of money. He realized that the velocity of capital beat static margins every single time. It's crazy because this is the exact same high-volume, low-margin model that built modern giants like Amazon, but he engineered it centuries earlier. Just keep the money moving, keep the market churning. And the third tactic, which really brilliantly illustrates his ethics, is high credibility. He practiced radical honesty. If a product he was selling had even the slightest fault, he pointed it out directly to the customer. He never, ever concealed defects. While a modern marketer might try to sweep a flaw under the rug, he understood that absolute transparency built unbreakable trust and a stellar reputation. In his framework, fulfilling this ethical command brought barakah, divine blessing and growth into his business. Moving right along to part 3, spotting gaps and managing risk. When he first stepped into the Kainuka market, he didn't just blindly copy what everyone else was doing. No.
He became a quiet observer. He watched customer behavior, he studied the prices, and he mapped out the supply chains in his head. He was actively looking for inefficiencies that the established traders were completely ignoring. Basically, he wanted high-demand, low-risk entry points. So how did he scale it up? It happened in 3 really distinct phases. Phase 1, he started with what was easiest to acquire: yogurt, butter, and dates. Very simple, low-risk goods. But then he got creative. In Phase 2, he actually combined them to create a recipe called Haith, moving from raw goods to a value-added product. Smart, right? Then, once he built up enough capital through that high volume, he moved to Phase 3, trading horses and saddles. He never relied on just one single income stream, and he systematically, carefully escalated his risk and reward. Which brings us to Part 4, the power of reinvestment. What do you actually do when all this cash starts pouring in? Today, in what the source perfectly calls the show-off generation, massive profits usually equal massive lifestyle inflation. We buy the cars, the watches, the houses. But Abdurahman prioritized growth assets over personal luxury. He understood that wealth was a tool to be used, not an excuse to just kick back and stop working. Just look at the stark contrast in his early stages. What did he not do? He didn't build a luxurious home. He didn't wear extravagant clothing or waste his capital on meaningless status symbols. Instead, what did he do? He relentlessly reinvested his profits right back into trade goods. He expanded his caravans, increased his inventory, and fortified his supply routes. He actively delayed personal gratification to ensure complete, unshakable business stability. And finally, Part 5, the ultimate wealth multiplier. All of his incredible business acumen was underscored by a deeply held spiritual belief, famously captured in this prophetic quote: "Charity does not decrease wealth." For him, money was not an idol to be hoarded in a vault somewhere. Giving it away wasn't seen as a loss on his balance sheet at all. It was viewed as the ultimate, totally guaranteed investment. And we're not talking about casually giving a small percentage here. Look at the sheer volume of his charity. He personally financed half of the Muslim army during a major battle. Another time, he literally donated an entire incoming trade caravan. We're talking 700 camels fully loaded with supplies, just right there on the spot. He gave away half of his massive wealth on multiple occasions, freed slaves, and made absolutely sure orphans were cared for. This was highly strategic giving, investing in the afterlife while somehow simultaneously thriving in this life. Yet despite being one of the wealthiest men on the planet at the time, he had absolutely no attachment to that money. Our sources note this incredibly powerful anecdote where he was once served an extravagant meal, and instead of indulging, he just began to weep. He remembered that others before him had never even eaten their fill. He genuinely feared divine accountability for the immense blessings he held. His wealth chased him, sure, but his heart remained completely, totally unattached to it. And this brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this explainer, perfectly summarized by one profound question. His success wasn't driven by constantly asking, "Will this make me rich?" His entire strategy, the radical honesty, the refusal of debt, the massive charitable giving, the constant reinvestment, was driven by asking, "Is Allah pleased with this?" By keeping his ethics at the absolute forefront and completely refusing to compromise his values, he unlocked a level of success that literally broke axes. It really leaves us to wonder, if we applied even just a tiny fraction of this discipline and integrity to our own lives and work, what kind of lasting wealth could we build?